Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala falah. Hayya ala falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Ahmaduhu wa asta'inuhu wa astadihi wa astaghfiruhu wa u'minu bihi jalla wa ala wa la akfuru wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu arsalahu bil huda wa dinil haqq liyudhhirahu ala ad-din kullihi wallahu karihal mushrikun. All praise belongs to Allah. We praise Him, we seek His help, His assistance, and His guidance. We believe in Him and do not disbelieve in Him. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and messenger. Allah sent him, that is Muhammad, with Deen al-Haq, the religion, the way, the methodology of truth. And this way of life known as Islam will rise to its proper position in this world, whether the mushriks like it or not. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وأوثق الأمور كلمة التقوى وخير الملال ملة إبراهيم وخير السنن سنة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وأشرف الحديث ذكر الله وأحسن القصص هذا القرآن وخير الأمور أوزموها وشر الأمور محدثاتها وأحسن الهدي هدي الأنبياء وأشرف الموت قتل الشهداء وأما علامة دلالة بعد الهدى وخير الأعمال ما نفاها وخير الهادي ما اتباعها وشر الأمة أما الكعب. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the most truthful of discourses is Kitabullah, or the Book of Allah. The most trustworthy word is taqwa, or fear of Allah. The best of the community is the community of Prophet Ibrahim. The best way of life is the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The remembrance of Allah is the most glorious of all things. The best of all narrations is Quran. The best acts are those requiring the highest degree of will and determination. The best way of life is the one adopted by the prophets of Allah. The most glorious death is the death of the martyr. The most wretched blindness consists of going astray after finding the right way. Best guidance is that which people may be able to follow. The worst blindness is the blindness of the heart. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna Allah ya'muru bil-'adli wal-ihsani wa ita'i dhil-qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal-munkari wal-baghi ya'idukum la'allakum tadhakkarun. Allah commands justice, the doing of good, and brotherly to kith and kin. He forbids all shameful deeds and injustice and rebellion. He instructs you that you may receive admonition. فَمَنْ يُرِيدِ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَهْدِيَهُ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. Those whom Allah in His plan willing to guide, He open their breasts to Islam. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ حَقَّ تُقَاتِهِ وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. O you believe, fear Allah as He should be feared, and do not die except in a state of Islam. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. And hold fast all together by the rope which Allah stretches out to you, and be not divided amongst yourselves. And remember with gratitude Allah's favor on you. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat lin-nasi ta'muruna bil-ma'rufi wa tanhauna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah. You are the best peoples ever raised up for mankind, enjoining what is right, forbidding what is wrong, and believing in Allah. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين محمدين النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، يقول الله تعالى في القرآن الكريم: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفر إنه كان توابا. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. When comes the help of Allah and victory, and thou dost see the people enter Allah's religion in crowds, celebrate the praises of thy Lord, and pray for His forgiveness, for He is all forgiving, most merciful. This is one of the last, if not the last, ayat revealed in completion in the Quran. And some people talk about the first revelation and the second. In other words, it had been recited all the time, but people realized it when the Prophet ﷺ was returning from the last Hijrah. And he recited this before he gave one of his last khutbah on the way back from the Hajj. And it was said to be revealed about 82 days before his death. And some say that it had been revealed all along, but it gained really a serious importance at that, because even Umar radiallahu anhu was asked about it. They asked the Prophet, is this a sign of your impending death? Is this coming to the end of your mission? And he said, yes, it's just about done. And this reminds us of a situation that we're involved in, but it's not, doesn't have the gravity and the weight. But we have to think sometime, what stage are we in as a ummah? What are we going through? How are we dealing with it, and what have you? And when we look at the world right now, the last few weeks, we see that clearly there is a global transformation going on in the world. Is it accidental, or is it designed, or is it some of it designed and some of it accidental? In those cases, you would really want to have a grip on the future. You know, to kind of understand where are we at as a ummah. And as far as we're concerned, dear believers, as a ummah, this was revealed at the end of Prophet Muhammad's mission, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he initiated that conversation. That, yeah, I think this is a sign of that my mission is complete. All of Arabia is Islamic. The barriers of Islam are broken. People are entering the religion of Allah in groups, large groups, whole tribes. So the missionary work and the organizational work of Islam, right, for that period is done. The Prophet ﷺ had completed his mission. And this was an intonation that your coming death is near, because he passed away about 82 days after this. And so, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحُ, when Allah's help and victory come, and you see the people entering Allah's religion in groups and companies or large missions, maybe even whole states, like in those days, whole tribes. One person took Shahada and the whole tribe took Shahada. The leader of the tribe took Shahada and the whole tribe took Shahada. A region took Shahada and the whole region took Shahada. That was the power of Islam. And so it's telling us, because see, we don't want ourselves to go to sleep at the time of the great transformation, you know. In other words, right in the middle of the rebellion, right in the middle of the transformation, right in the middle of the great change, moving toward goodness or betterment. We don't want to be asleep at the advent of that transition. And this is a reminder, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحُ, when Allah's help and victory comes, all the great battles that you were involved in, it was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who pulled you through. And when you see the people, the multitudes of the people coming to Islam in crowds, right? Celebrate the praises of Allah. Don't say, yeah, man, they thought they had me. They thought they had the Ummah, but they didn't get us. You know, I'm a bad joker. Could have said that, you know, after all the whole Arabia. But Allah's reminding me, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحُ, when Allah's help and victory comes, get out of that mirror of personal glory, right? Don't stand there in that mirror of personal, boy, Muhammad, you did it this time. You didn't really pull it off. They thought they had you, but look at the chorus now. Look at them, look at them, coming with their flags drooped. Last year they had it waving high, talking out the side of their mouth. Look at them now. He could have said that, but Allah is telling them, when my help and victory comes, don't say you did nothing. All you did was follow orders. That's technically what it is. He followed orders, right? He followed orders. One time, was one prophet got to go down to Nineveh. He said, them people ain't no good. I ain't going to mess with them folks. And he went the other way. That's why the boat got to rocking. And everybody trying to figure out why we get this curse. So they want to throw him overboard, because they know he's running away from a mission. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam never had that problem. When Allah ordered him, he said, it's the mission. He never buckled, he never gave up. And this is a sign that he never became arrogant. And this is from Allah. saying to him and the whole Ummah, your prophet never became, he never said, when my help and victory come, right? When Allah's help and victory come. Technically, you might wonder why at this stage when the Ummah is backed up, when the Ummah seems to be missing a lot of misfirings going on, well, that's not the way it looks to us. It's not the way it looks at all. It looks just like that period. It seems like the Islamic revival is taking place and getting ready to explode. If you look at the things that they've been trying here in the West, and they've been playing around where they ain't been playing, they've been serious. Everything they do, they've been serious. You know what I mean? When they initiate some new policy, right? When they initiated the policy of Donald Trump, they said, we're going to really fool these people. We're going to see how much mileage we're going to get out of them. This was an initiated policy. He didn't just jump up from nowhere and become president of the United States. They had several plans. Plan A, Plan B, da-da-da-da-da. But they wanted to see how far they could go with the mentality, with the attitude of Donald Trump. And then they assisted him in becoming the president. And he got a chance to try to influence the whole world on a new American policy. So they're not just going to just jump up and try, you know, like they try everything before they set it up and let it fly. They want to cruise around, you know what I mean, to see. And they have a shakedown cruise for a new boat or a ship, right, anything. So they wanted to look at what they had, America. And we want to experiment. We got to focus. We got somewhere we want to go, but we want to experiment on this one. And that's what Don was, the big experiment. Don was to see how far he could take them on things that they didn't want to do. Example, and some they did want to do. The so-called treaty with Iran, right? They knew if they fulfilled that treaty at that time, it's going to give the Islamic Republic some big steps forward. Then to guarantee that, they had Russia, China, Germany, they had the whole crew verifying that treaty. But they stepped out of it. They stepped out of it, why? Because they wanted to see how far they could go, how far they could take this, and how little they could give on their side. And they did that. They broke every part of that treaty. And then they rode roughshod over the other people that wanted to or pretended to want to. You got to remember now, boss man is just like, you know, that was something in history that said that when the Europeans was promising making treaties with the Indians, they would say, the Indians would want to know, how long is this treaty? He said, long as the grass grow, the wind blow, and the sky is blue. That's what Bossman said. So for the Indian, that's forever. Right? So he didn't already study the Indian mentality a little bit. He got his trappers and other people out there, been with him, and lived with them and loved them. And then they asked him, well, how do these people think about that? They said, if you tell them this, then they go on for it. They're going to say, yeah, that's forever. Far long as the grass grow, the wind blow, and the sky is blue, if any one of those elements is removed from the cycle, right, then it's finished. If the wind stop blowing, the plants stop getting fertilized, and it don't transfer rain from one spot to the other. It don't do none of that. Right? So long as the wind blow, the grass grow, and the sky is blue. to inaugurate this new period with old Don. And Don was just the kind of fool that they needed to carry out their experiment for that period. Because they know we need a new period. Now what part are we going to play? Are we going to dominate? Are we going to have to take second, back seat, third? What are we going to do? And they're not used to sitting in the back. They want to be in the driver's seat. But they want to have a test run. So they brought Don on to have a test. And that's what that whole last 4 years has been, a long trial run for the United States of America, to see how much they can stand, how much they can take, how far can we push them over on this side, right? And they did that. That's why they wanted to see how far and how much could this earth stand of the mentality that they have been pushing all along. See, remember now, there ain't nothing new they pushed with Don. The Zionists never wanted a treaty with Iran. They never wanted any of that. They never wanted to do any of the things in the climate and that is related to the survival of animals and bugs and humans and even fish in the sea. They didn't want to do none of that. All they wanted is more money, but they want to see, well, what is this going to look like? So they hired that clown. They hired him. Now you notice here, this is not new language. We've always said this from the very beginning, that he was hired to do a certain job. And they studied his character, and, you know, nobody would be crazy enough to do the stuff that he did. I don't say nobody, but he would play that part perfectly. He was broke. He needed money. His hotels was all fumbling. He had to rent the name of the hotel, Trump Towers, all over the world. But he don't own them. They just pay him a certain amount of money to use his name, which he hurriedly spends up. Because he's wasteful. He's a bad businessman. He ain't nothing like his daddy. He is a real loser. I mean, he don't do nothing right as far as money is concerned. Money and power. And even he had maximum power. He exercised more power than almost any president in modern history. He exercised more power. He said, we're not doing that, and they wouldn't do it. And he had the Congress with him. He had all of the other agencies in the government with him. He did stuff that nobody even thought about doing before. And he got away with it. He had a new line, a new lie every day, right? But now he's gone. He's gone because the experiment, America, 2016, 2020, failed. It was a failed experiment. And we were never fooled about any of it. I asked Senator Brothers, when we would be downtown in Black Lives Matter, one of them was so ridiculous that we got to calling the rounds. Remember that? Now they're going to do this. And they was doing it. We made them stop doing, you know, the big white boy. He's supposed to be our friend in the first few demonstrations. And the demonstrations were a design failure from the beginning. Right? There was no purpose for the demonstrations. There was no structure. There was no organization. None of that. We was out there trying to tell them about teach-ins. That when you have a march, when you have a demonstration, when you have a period of history, then you have to state your case. This is why we're here. And then you have to organize the people to follow a certain pattern of behavior until they reach their goal of deliverance. Whatever it is, right? It's just natural for demonstration. Some of us older people knew that, and we knew when we had demonstrations, first of all, there were no Muslims down there. One Pakistani family got misguided or something, and they strolled up, one family, and a few Negro Muslims been out of Lord, and they knew us, and stuff like that, you know, but it was no Muslim presence. Think about it. There was no Muslim presence. Why was there no Muslim presence when all the demonstrations before that were organized, that had a mission, that had certain goals that they wanted, and had structure and organization, right? They had people as part of the demonstration, right, that it was their job to manage and cooperate and coordinate with the officials, right? They didn't have that, especially during the first part. So we knew from, you can walk in the door and look around and you can say, this is not structured correctly, according to what we understand about demonstrations. Why are you here? Why are you here? Black Lives Matter. Well, why is it so many, why is it more white folks than it is black folks? What had they done in the years before to make that possible? How is it possible that they would come, they would make that noise, and then they would go home? Where are the white folks now? Then they would send the police would come and try to sidetrack us and get an interview with them. Remember the police? What about those people, the white people down there, you know? I said, oh, they are people. You know, they're there for you. You gone. Right? What are they doing in our neighborhood? What are they doing? I said, they're not there. They used those people here. Those people are yours. And how is it that so many people can pop up and be there, and then when the bell rings, they all gone? How can it, what, you have to, right? Things have to kind of evolve. How can the bell ring, remember the old school bell, ring, ring, ring? And then everybody's there, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to go. Black Lives Matter. Then they ring the bell again, they all gone. Well, it got to be 5 or 10 just running up and down the street. Somewhere. So we realized years ago, decades ago, that we were in a structured America. Structured. That they do things, that they have gotten their system down pat, where they go by periods of time, series of time, and they present in front of everybody what they want to present. And they act off of that stuff. You know, when they're getting into these super human beings, they popped up with $6 million man. Right? That was a long time ago. Man, that was 50 years ago. Bionic man, all of that stuff. But when did the period from the transfer from a total human being to a mixture of human being, a mixture of plastic and function, right, and ability, right? When did that transfer take place? Was it in the 80s? Was it in the 90s? Was it in the early 2000s? But it did happen, right? It did happen. There was a transfer of time when there's a intermediate being that they can manage, and a being that is partial animal, all of that, and partial mechanical. And now we see mechanical parts all the time, transfer parts from one person to another. You know, how to depress the immune system to keep the thing from them. How the whole molecular setup is being altered right now in front of our face. So is the political structure and the social structure being manipulated right in front of our faces. But people They're not up on it. They're not paying attention. Now let's get to you and I. What part we're going to play in this? We're going to sit around, just let it happen. Right? Or happen in a way that's beneficial to them and destructive to us? Are we going to let a criminal that have never did nothing for no more than one or two people that benefits from it, right? And you don't get no benefit from it at all? Are we going to allow them to manipulate the whole earth? The earth is manipulated now by human beings. They can tell how bad it's going to be by how much sludge and sewage that they pump into the ocean. How is it that you can have an ocean? I don't know. They say that the earth is 70-something% water. How can they pollute all of that water? And the thing is 196 million square miles, something like that. But how can they do that? How can they pollute all of that space? How can they have parts of the ocean where it's just dead zones in the whole ocean? The Pacific Ocean is 64 million square miles, 68, 102. The Atlantic Ocean over here is 41 million square. How can they do it? Plus all the other areas and seas of water. How can they pollute and have dead zones in all that space? When that space used to control the climate, well, it still do, but it used to clean the water, right? Remember when the sun would shine down on liquids of water, right? Bring it up, turn it to a gaseous type, bring it up into the clouds. The clouds get heavy. Oh, that's it. And then they would rain distilled water, fresh water. The water they used to send down, Allah used to send down from the sky was fresh and distilled, right? Distilled water. Is it distilled now? Allah distilled it up there, but it's got little microplastics in it now. Little microplastics as light as air. The ocean, they say 20-30% full of microplastics. And the fish eat all the plastic thinking it's something alive, and they have a full stomach and they die of starvation. Right now, fish that's on that. Because this human being that is off base, right? That Allah gave him ability to do that on earth. But he also gave his man, the Khalifa, the ability to clean it up, to straighten it up, and make it right. That's me and you. That's the other good peoples. White ones, red ones, all kind of colors of people, right? That want to see the earth clean and pure like it was when Allah gave it to us. You know, all other people had rituals. You know, the American Indian, when they would plant corn, they would also put a fish. You know, they would put a fish in there with it. So, of course, we know the best fertilizer that you could have, right, is a decomposing fish. And of course, I mean, what other, the protein, the vitamins, everything, and every time they planted a seed of corn, they called it for sacrifice. We're sacrificing this to the great one of the universe. Whatever they reasoned, they was putting back because they knew that when you take something out, you got to put something back. So they was calling it a sacrifice. It wasn't no sacrifice. It was fertilizing. It was fertilizing the earth. Okay, those systems and those people have been conquered and deposed, and now the one that has no respect for the earth has ran everything for a couple hundred years. And he's done a masterful job of polluting and sludging up the whole earth, right? I mean, some places the water in the ocean is so thick that it's like sludge. So it's the water, right? It's a cleanser, it's all of that. Now, the Khalifa, don't worry, we're going to stay on track. When we finish, it'll make sense, inshallah. The Khalifa, yeah, the Khalifa, God's man. It's his job to straighten this all out, clean it up, organize it, and make it habitable for human and animals. That's his job. The other guy, Shaitan and his crew, Iblis and his crew, they're all on the same team. They're here to cause mischief and shed blood, right? That's their job. And the job of Khalifa, you and I, is to manage the earth, to be a steward, to keep it working perfectly in harmony with itself and with its customers. Let's call ourselves customers. Right? Suppose we just go in the store and gobble up everything and that's it. We don't replenish it. Well, that's the same thing. It's not fertilizing the earth with the proper balance of fertilizers so the plants can grow properly. Suppose you use super reinvented, unnatural fertilizer to just the plants, you stick them in the ground and they zoop and they don't stop growing until you pull them out. Why? Because they have super unnatural fertilizers. Not natural fertilizers, like waste. Even places like China and Germany. When I was in Germany, this is a long time ago, about 50 years ago, we used to see those wagons going down the street. They had steam coming out of them. And they were, they would go to a place and the wagons would collect, waste. And the little steam coming out was from the heat that they, produced. And then in the wintertime, it was all right for smell. But in the spring, when them fields in Germany would loosen up, they would smell like doo-doo. They would smell just like it. Why? Because the Germans did, and probably now, and the Chinese, many other people use the human waste, animal waste, right, as fertilizer. And so they would treat it, heat it up a little bit to kill all the bad organisms, and then they drive out on the fields and just all the winter they was using all that waste. And the winter, Germany's cold, so you didn't smell nothing. Boy, but when the spring would come and it warm up a little bit, Germany smelled like pretty bad. Just imagine that all the fields in Germany, but those crops grew. Right? I mean, it's perfect fertilizer. Not artificial fertilizer, just real fertilizer. The human gave off his waste, the other animals give off waste. They remanufacture, restructure that waste, put it back on the fields, and the crops grow, and they eat this stuff, and pretty soon they sent back. They were in tune with the natural cycle. But the human being here, he grew super crops, still do. But it's artificial fertilizer, right? It don't break down. When it goes back out in the ocean, it kills certain other things that are there that's part of the balance. Okay, we'll get back on topic. That's our job. That's your job. That's our job. To rebalance the earth. Donald Trump's job was to mess up His job was to see how much can we mess this thing up. How much can we mess it up and it still hold together? Think about it. Everything that was for good of the earth, every pipeline they had closed down before, he opened it back up. Everything from fracking, all right, you can frack all you want now, right? That's what he did. They wanted to see how we can let this madman and his crew mess up things as much as possible and see how much the earth can stand it. To them, it was an experiment. Well, you know, they got them a little experiment. Well, if it go bad, we'll just build a little area, you know, put a little glass bubble over it, and, you know, we'll stay there, and all the niggas, they'll have to stay out there, and all that smoke, and all that where they are now. Right? You think the white folks, the rich ones, Bezos and them, is breathing the same air we do? They might have to stick their head outside for a minute. Right? For a minute only. And if they live somewhere, they got islands that they have, this is in the wind current, this is a fresh air island here. Don't nobody know it but them, because they got things out there measuring this is fresh air here. Where you think they live? Think they live downtown D.C.? Downtown New York? They might fly in on a helicopter. The helicopter got that air conditioned in, his building got air conditioned, he fly zoop, zoop, and he stick his head outside for about 30 seconds, and he back inside his designed environment, because he know this one he's killing it. You see what I mean? Okay, now, here we are, and we're going to try not to be too long, but this is a new period. Well, we call it a new period. It's a new period for us, because all the things that we've been thinking about, writing about, and hoping about, we're going to now try to incorporate those things. Yeah, why not? Why? Because when Allah put that bomb on this earth and gave him a chance to mess it up, right? To do mischief and shed blood. Well, that's his mission. That's what he, can you imagine this guy's mission? My mission is, and then he opened the envelope, oh, my good God Almighty. My mission is to cause mischief and shed blood. That's my job. Now, do I want to be just an ordinary old fitness starter, or do I want to reach excellence? What has he been doing? He's been doing pretty good. You have to give him, you know, 93, 94 on his test, on his earthly, for messing up. Right? He has pulled it off. And now, we got to readjust the earth in which we live on. I was just looking at a page here from 2005. 1/27/2005. That's a while ago. And it has the taxes for Oakland. In one case, 17,000. This is all at one time. $17,684. 8,000. That was cash. 8,974. That's check. And 19,515. That was in cash. That was what we paid one day. A lot of y'all was here then. That was just one payment in Oakland for our taxes. People had let them drag along and they wasn't doing nothing. And all of a sudden, I stumbled on a letter, and it said that we owed, I guess this is let's call it rounded off at $50,000 in taxes. Now, we're not no rich crew or nothing like that. But we went out in Oakland and we paid it. This is just the size of the checks and cash that we went to the window. With cashier's checks, one for 19,000, one for 17,000, another 8 or 9,000. We had that in cashier's check. Even the day after that, we sent $500 overseas to Sri Lanka for the tsunami. Y'all remember the tsunamis that they had? Okay. Well, the governor, I don't want to stray, but the governor there in Sri Lanka, Hafiz Maulana, when the tsunami happened, when they were describing the places, I said, man, I used to run down that, because I would go, in those days, I would go to Sri Lanka a lot. You know, so Sri Lanka is a Buddhist country, 7% Christians and 7% Muslims. But they all are Indians. And most Indians are Hindus, but these are not. And so they wanted me to come because we deal with a lot of unity here. So 7% Christians, 7% Muslims. And so we were used to, you know, like our uncles, half of everybody we know is Christian, right? So we get along. There's no Christian and Muslim riots here in America, right? Because everybody's our cousin, uncle, or mama, or daddy, right? All of our relatives are Christians. So they might argue with us, boy, you don't believe in Jesus, or it ain't gonna look good for you. You better straighten up, you better get that line and all. But they ain't gonna cut your throat, you know, or blow up your house or nothing like that. Neither you or them. In fact, after a few years, you start living at Islam, what happens to most of your relatives? They start liking you. And they start respecting Islam. Because guess what? We practice okay, let's try to get a number. If they practice 20%, maybe 7 or 8, could be 20% Christianity. Let's say as a whole, we practice, say, 60% Islam. I'm just using numbers. I'm not trying to be exact, you know, anything like that. But just suppose we practice 60% Islam and 8% practice 20% Christianity. Because don't let up turn the other cheek. You ever jump on one of your relatives? Did he say, oh, you hit me on the side of the face here, go on, hit me over that. They don't do that. Right? If you steal from them, you steal their coat, they don't say, hold it, let me give you my overcoat. They don't do that, right? Okay, I will get back to the subject. We've been involved in a long struggle here. All these years. And some of us it's been 40 years, some of it 50 years. But now we're at the point of instituting as much of what we have learned and incorporating that into our daily lives. As much of the Quran as we can. And Allah knows. That's our job. And also to help the people of the world, to help America. You know, all the people out here are Americans. And they're not bright. Don't get me wrong. You can sell them anything, right? I mean, you could sell an American almost anything. Not all of them. But the people are driven by their lower, let's call it nafs amara. Mostly nafs amara, not much nafs lawama, and definitely not nafs al-mutmain. they're mostly on the animal level, right? If it gets hot, they want it to cool off, right? If they see a girl walk by or a boy, they say, oh, that's a nice child there. They don't say that they're married. They don't do that, right? Because they follow their nafs. Their nafs don't have any check. Hold. You can't do that. That's somebody else's wife. Well, you can't do that. That might be later on, way up in nafs mutmainah, but that's not going to be exercised that much in America. So what do? We try to help Americans evolve, right? So that this physical body can be overpowered by the spiritual, or let's say the second stage, the humanness. Because if you're an animal, you don't relate to, you take the animal, the ethical, and the spiritual. But what's going on? The animal in us rules almost everything, right? We do what we feel like doing physically. We'll borrow $1 zillion and can't pay it back because we feel like doing that. We don't think like, we don't know we're going to be broke for the rest of our lives, right? Or you don't look at a man's wife and say, oh, she's married to him, so therefore, ain't nothing happening. No. We just say, how can we make that happen, right, with her being married to him, right? I'm just saying, not all of us are unethical, but when it comes time to make a decision for this person, Nafsamara wins almost all the time, isn't that right? And with the world that we live in, we have to help in the earthly and the humanly evolution on earth. Okay, so I'm going to move toward a close because I don't want to confuse you any more than I am right now. But no, it's about evolution. It's about our job here. We've been talking about this a whole long time. That this is our job. That Allah gave His man, His person, His woman, right, a mission. And that mission was to become the Khalifa on earth. The Khalifa, the manager, the organizer, the structurer, to make sure that the earth stays in balance. We just happen to be in one of those pivotal times in history where people are thinking about the past, the present, and the possible futures. Well, we're not only thinking about it, but we've been involved in the past. We've been involved in the past. And always on an honorable level. And the present. But the future, moving from the past into the daily present and carrying that into the future is now our big responsibility. That's why we, Nasrullahi wal Fath, right? وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَاسْتَغْفِرْهُ إِنَّهُ كَانَ تَوَّابًا. When Allah's help and victory comes, this is saying that we expect a great victory now. Why? Because the earth is hanging in balance. It's worse than one of them movies where the earth is hanging in balance. Will it be or won't it be? That's the way it is right now. Can you imagine? That's the time we're living in. We didn't put it here like that. All of us, mostly from the South, and we just lived whatever we did, and we didn't do this. But the people, that few percentage of people, control the earth, have abused the earth, and misused the earth, the whole earth. It's been misused and abused by the people who are running things. You want to turn them over? You want to turn the rest of it, this left, back over to them? You saw Don was trying to get every kind of rule he had in shape. Or the Alaska wilderness, you know that place up in Alaska that's pristine, they ain't got no road, we got to put a super highway through there. Get them trees out of there. Right? You know, whatever, we hear some oil up there, we better get a little bit of that too while we're at it, right? And don't worry, we won't pollute none of that. And that's what they said about everything else. That's where all the pollution comes. Can you imagine every drop of pollution, right? They're going to cut costs to get everything out of the earth that they can and convert it into zeros on the thing. Because now they got so much money, it don't make no difference. You know, just, stick some more zeros on there. Just to tell you that. Put some more on that and see what that do, right? That's what they do. That's how they live. Don't worry about whether they're happy or unhappy. You think you're unhappy because you can't pay your bills? They're unhappy because they can pay any bill they got, and there's something wrong with them. And all they got in them is greed, and more greed. And the more greed, the more harm to humanity, the more harm to the earth, the more harm to the whole social animal structure on earth. It's now thrown into imbalance. It's your job and it's our job to put it back in balance. That's basically what the whole Khutbah has been about today. And so, this is what we're asking Allah to help us with. Will you believe, persevere in patience and constancy? Vie in such perseverance, strengthen each other, and fear Allah that you may prosper. So, will you believe? Help with patient perseverance and prayer, for Allah is with those who patiently persevere. And say not of those who are slain in the way of Allah, they are dead, nay, they are living, though ye perceive it not. Be sure we shall test you with something of fear and hunger, some loss of goods or lives, or the fruits of your toil. But give glad tidings to those who patiently persevere. This is us. We've been patient, we've been persevering. Now we want to activate it. In order to activate it, we have to be, let's call it, high quality human beings. Muslim, that type. Those who are successful but good at being successful. We have to take Imam to a higher level now. If you saw what Don did in 4 years, imagine if the crew that they got in now, that these also, don't get me wrong, they're Americans, they're crooked as the day is long. They just, the A-team, we put that team in, you know, see if they win. Okay, you guys got to come out, and then we put another. That's all they do with politics. Tell the truth. That's all they do. They've been controlling it all along, and they put in, what are your team? You're going to try to do that? Okay, we'll give you a chance to see. Oh, hold on, we got to pull it. You know, they used to have big hooks on the stage, and they pull you off. That's what they're doing. That's what they did with Don. They said, oh, no, Don kept lying till the minute he left, right? And he was still lying. They pulling him off stage, and he's still lying. He's a liar. He can't help it. There's nothing wrong with him lying because he can't do anything else. And they pull him out, come on off. And he hollering and screaming, no, I belong here. They said, no, Don, you didn't blew it, boy. Look, we gave you 4 years. 4 years and everything along with it. We gave you the people. We gave you the whole earth. You made a treaty with Iran. You tore it up. We said, fine. Forget the treaty, right? You had responsibilities with the other people of the world. You tore it up. Fine. But now, that didn't work like we wanted it to work. So you got to go. That's the way they do. But I don't want to go. That's what he was talking about a few weeks ago. Well, the white folks said they don't care whether you want to go or not. You got to go because we got a system going on here, and we'll run a few people up to the White House or whatever they ran and act a fool and blame it on you. It's your fault. You did this. They pre-arrest you. He's pre-arrested. You know what I mean, right? He had nothing to do with that part. He had to do with everything else. I'm saying we're in a unique position, and I'm going to close. Whether you're confused or not, I'm still closing. Because see, sometimes, I'll tell you what happened. Last night I had, these things running through my head for Jum'ah and everything. So I said, whoever it was, slipped up, said, no, talk about this. And then somebody else said, talk about that. So I ain't paying no attention to nothing, y'all trying to confuse the poor brother. So I'm just going to get up, just like I'm doing, and start talking. And then whatever come out, it come out. That's the way you beat them, whatever they are, trying to confuse you. You just jump up and start rolling. It don't make no difference. That's a lot of trust. But in the meantime, I will say this. The world needs you, y'all, us. The world, the whole world. They need us. And do you notice that no matter how silly and foolish the African American get, the whole world still like it. Bring me the Negroes, right? No, because they used to tell us, no, nobody like you guys anywhere. I'd go to Pakistan, I'd be going down the street, all the kids would be chasing me. What y'all chasing? They thought I played, what is that game they played? Cricket. The kids in Pakistan thought, because a lot of black players are cricket, play. When I was in South America, they thought I used to say I'm a boxer of those. Boxer. Because they said niggas is boxers. So every country I was in, what do they think niggas do? And that's what I was. I said I'm a boxer of those. Then I throw a couple punches. You know what I mean? And I did exercise every morning, so they'd be watching. And the kids, some places the kids would follow us down the street. Because something about Negroes. People like them. They really like them. As dumb as we've been acting the last several years, people still like the Negro, I'll tell you. Hey man, I'm amazed at it. So we have a chance. In fact, we have a chance as good as anybody in this world today to help fix it. To help fix it. Because the people will follow us. Remember the police come up and said, they'd be trying to throw us off base at some of the demonstrations. You guys, we didn't let them people come in our neighborhood. Something like talk about white people. They're just innocent white folks, probably nice folks. They're coming out. Some of them are out here to participate with us. But they burning down. I said, no, they was not ours. They was yours. Remember that? I said, those is your white folks that's burning up and running around acting a fool. I said, if we can say our white folks, it's just peaceful, and look at them, peaceful looking white folks. You ever see anything that's peaceful? Right? I said, well, you look at that. And they're out there, and I don't want to change the subject, but no matter where we talked, they would look and they were so, wow, look at that nigga. He can actually speak English. He can speak English, and I can understand a few of the sentences, and love for humanity? Why, that's a white folks value. Where did he get that? Right? They're amazed. I'm telling you. We got so many things in our pocket we can use to help make the world a better place. It's unbelievable. Everything that they threw away, it fell in our pocket, and we can turn it to good. So let's make that our hope. Oh Allah, we seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief. Seek thy refuge from lack of strength and laziness. Seek thy refuge from cowardice and negligence. We seek thy refuge from being overpowered by debt and the oppression of men. O Allah, suffice us with what is lawful, keep from us what is prohibited. With thy grace, make us free from want of what is besides. Ameen. I just want to mention that next week, we're going to kind of outline our steps for the future. Actually, we'll probably do it next Sunday. Not this coming Sunday, after next. So where we're headed now is to fill our obligation, our duty, and our responsibilities as human beings on this earth. And more important than that, as Muslims, right? So everybody got a job to do. We ask Allah to help us do ours, inshallah. Come with us.